Hello, I'm Jennifer of Gin and Cocoa, and hope you all have your mugs of hot chocolates ready because we are going to work some more on our language and culture this week. So, hope you're ready to jump on in, and let's get to it. So, and also just a quick disclaimer: I am a little bit under the weather today, so bear with me if that causes any interruptions throughout this. But otherwise, let's get into making some languages. So, last week, when we started off with language, started off our culture, we have our Venus Medusa as our kind of our working name for these people. Oh, that is not what I meant to do. Okay. And we also set up some goals that we wanted to complete with this language as we're going through. And last week I also said I was looking at our nouns and our case system, and I was looking at some things with the accusative and the dative cases specifically. And I looked up what I was looking up, and it's a morphosyntactic alignment thing called secundative. And I may be butchering some of this. I'm working the best off the knowledge I have. But essentially, the gist is, let's go on our test, and I'll be able to come up with a good one. So if we have Sally, Rock, and Joe, and let's just say we'll use the word give because this works. So we have our, here, let me back up. So we have our nouns that we've been working with. We have Sally, Rock, and Joe, or Rocks, maybe. There's our sample nouns we've been working with. And we have, we've been working with throw specifically, which is a wonderful little transitive verb. However, if you're going to have an indirect object, you need to have a ditransitive verb. So that's where we're coming in, is that let's say we have give, because that's a good classic transitive or ditransitive verb. So we could say Sally gives Joe the rocks, which would be a typical sentence in English. In this case, you would have Sally being your, I forget the exact names, but essentially, Sally is going to be marked the accusative or the nominative case in both of these options, and in both a ditransitive and in a transitive verb. Let's actually take these away for just a little bit. Actually, we have all these up here. That would work. So in both, these would both be nominative. So the question in this would be, right here would be accusative case. The question is, so in Sally gives Joe the rocks. Rocks is our direct object, and Joe is our indirect object. So the question is, which one gets marked in the accusative case? So one way that we could do it would be to mark both rocks in both instances in the accusative case. They're both the direct object. And then we would give Joe our dative case. The alternative, and this is the one I think I want to go with, would be, I should have copy-pasted, oh well. So we still have that being nominative. Would be to do this one in the accusative and this one in, we'll call it the dative. I don't know if it would technically be called that or not. But essentially to mark the direct object of a transitive verb and the indirect object of an intransitive verb as the same. So that way both are they're marked similarly. And that the direct object of a ditransitive verb would be marked with a different marking. And I think that's the way I want to go with that. So we need to go into our evolution. So that'll kind of say some of what give some of our reason to why our accusative is the way it is. And I think because you can say for these ditransitive verbs, you can say Sally gives the rocks Yep. To Joe. I think I want to do some sort of to thing for our accusative case. Comes from to. To. I'm not 100% certain on that. To me, to is a very ambiguous and very purely grammatical word, at least in my mind. And so to give it a singular meaning here is a little bit odd. It's a very English word to me. And that may not be the case, but that's just how I'm perceiving it at the moment. So, which means we still need to come up with our dative case. Which admittedly, we could have it be similar to the accusative case, but I think the whole point of us doing this is to have a very clear distinction between our accusative and our dative case. So, and again, remembering that our dative case does not mark indirect objects like it normally does. What it instead marks is direct objects of ditransitive verbs. So, our dative case could come from That's the real question here. So, okay, let's just play around with this for a moment. So if we say Sally gives to Joe the rocks. Sally throws 2 rocks. Would technically be the right way to say that. And then how would we say Sally gives to Joe blank rocks? Like for the rocks, or against the rocks. That one doesn't make sense. Or there we have some options. This is where I am not as well versed as I would like to be, and stuff I would definitely want to learn more about. This is very nebulous territory for me. Some ideas here. So we could say let's play around some. I think I might need to play around with some accusative more. So if we say to is our accusative, is what our accusative will derive from, is something meaning to. But what does to mean? That's I think probably actually where I'm getting into trouble with the nebulousness. That's to definition. Expressing motion in the direction of a particular location, approaching or reaching a particular condition, used with the base form of a verb to indicate that the verb is infinitive, used with a verb following when the missing verb is clearly understood. Or used without a verb following when the missing verb is clearly understood. So it has to be closed or nearly closed. So those are also all the Google Dictionary definitions I was reading out there. I think the preposition ones, the motion towards, it's essentially when we're saying it towards. Is kind of the idea we're getting here. Accusative comes from, so essentially it's something like towards or to. Which would essentially mean Sally throws towards rocks. Okay, that's, if I use probably a different verb there, it'd probably make a little more, the English gets a little bit weird there. Or, yeah, what's a better transitive verb? Because Sally throws could be a intransitive verb. So that's part of where that comes from. Hmm. Looking up some good transitive verbs. Transitive verbs, all the transitive verbs. Buy. Buy is a good one. Sally buys rocks. Sally buys towards rocks. But essentially be the idea. Yeah, that works. I like that. Sally buys 2 rocks. Sally buys towards rocks. Yeah, I do like that. So, towards 2, yeah, that works. Now our dative case. So we'll go back to our test. So Sally gives towards Joe something rocks. Admittedly, we could leave it the dative case unmarked and essentially does not have a dative case. Would essentially mean that the dative and the nominative would essentially be marked the same, because I don't plan on marking the nominative in any way. I'm planning on that being unmarked. Which would mean I almost kind of like that idea. It's also, I kind of like it because it means it's one less thing I have to think of. Yeah, I think I do like that idea. It kind of also points out an unimportance of what is being given and more of an importance on who it's being given to, in a way. Yeah. I think I'll play around with that some more. I think for right now, I might leave the dative case unmarked. Unless I find something, or unless some word comes up that just like, this is what the dative case needs to come from. Actually, it could be from a similar thing as our locative case. Especially if we use something more like at or by. Buy rocks. Sally gives towards Joe, buy rocks. Sally gives towards Joe at rocks. I mean, I think anything I try and do there is not going to make sense to an English brain, which is what I'm trying to approach it from. Yay! Gotta love this. I never claimed to be an expert in this thing. You can definitely see it right now. So, some ideas we could do. So we have our dative. Dative case comes from what? So we have a few options, and nothing's coming to mind right now. So many options. Okay. Towards 2 in the direction of, yeah, I do like that. Could do something like causal, maybe? Something like for, or like I did this for you, I did this because of you, or to cause of you. But it's something, I think that might be an idea. So for, cause, hope I could spell, for, cause, those sort of things. That has some potential. I'm not thrilled with it, but it's better than the blankness that I'm currently otherwise drawing. But I think there's something along those lines that has merit, and that could stem more possibilities as we continue on down this path. Okay, I like this. This, I think I can work with. And then genitive, we'll need to look into that at some point as well. And it's possible that our genitive and our dative could be related, so that could also become... and it, actually, our genitive and our dative cases could be pretty much from the same thing, similar to our instrumental and comminative case. Yeah, that has some potential. I think, yeah, our genitive and our dative case might be from a similar root. I don't know if this has any basis in actual real-world languages or not, but I like the idea, and that's what matters at the end of the day. For, cause, of, okay, I think there's some good ideas here. And I actually had another idea just a moment ago about something you could also do with be alert. Which would kind of go with our to pay attention. Yeah, I think we have some good ideas here for our cases. And this is a great place to start with these. And of course, this is just a beginning. We're going to... things are going to change as we go. I should also note that... I should probably put the asterisk. I should probably say... these are human genders for a... I guess they were human at one point, but they're really a different species by this point. So, human gender, something related to humans. I should probably put quotes around those. And the question on that would be, do we mark... We may have asked this last week, and I may have said no, but I can't remember. But is something I was thinking about the other day is, do we mark our non-human gender at all? Or does something arise in opposition to the human gender, or just something like that? And I don't know. One way I know that that would come about is that if I believe is that I intend for the gender markings to attach to the case markings. And in that case, you would get a difference between the ones that, between the case markings that have human attached and that get fused into them versus the ones that don't. So you would get some of those distinctions over time. And so actually, that I think because of that, we don't necessarily need to mark a human. We don't need to mark a non-human gender. And again, human. Anytime I say it right now, in quotes. Considering that Venus flytraps in this context are also considered human nouns. Okay, so I think that gives us the basis of the most complex thing we want with our nouns, which is our case and gender system. We do need to look at some point about number, as well as like person and a few other things like that. But these are the two big things I really want to work on. So we'll start with that. Verbs. So I did do some more research on what options we have, and I forgot just how much there is you can do with verbs. And so this one I know it'll largely be a matter of what words we pick to derive from in the long run. As for I need to kind of determine what exact tenses, aspects, and moods we're going to wind up having. So I think that's what I want to do next, is kind of work some more on our TAM. So, and I do want them highly interconnected as well. I want to try and get as much stuff just kind of very much interconnected, and very much, I think fusional language style is kind of what I'm aiming for here. So, yeah, let's start. So I think I want to start with that simple past, non-past distinction. And early on, our word for past. Okay, well, let's just make it quick. So we have our non-past, our past, and then whatever aspects are moods, which we'll get back to that in a moment. So let's start. Yeah, we'll start with this non-past past distinction. What do we want our past verbs to derive from? Something like to finish, to complete, finish, complete. There's other words that I'm just completely blanking on right now. To do. Well, that one doesn't quite feel like it makes as much sense in my opinion. That sounds more like a present tense or a future tense thing to do. What other words are like completion or, yeah. To finish, I think. To finish is what is coming to mind. I'm not thrilled with it. It feels too normal, too basic. But it is an idea that I could do. It is one that would work. It certainly doesn't take much effort, in my opinion. But I kind of want to say more creative than that. Something a little bit more unique. Not much, but a little bit more. To complete, it's kind of the same thing as to finish, in a way. At least in English, there's a difference in the meaning. But to finish, to complete. Yeah, well, the problem is a lot of words I'm thinking of are just the past tense form of things, like to have done, which doesn't really help. I'm not deriving the past tense from a past tense. So, to finish, to complete, to wrap up, to know. Oh yeah, mental states can sometimes be the I think, I could be very wrong on this, but I think mental states can sometimes be the basis for past tenses or past tense based things. To know, to understand. I like to know, like something about knowing that the past has happened. I think there's something more there of to experience. I like that one. I think that gives this something like to experience, to undergo. There we go. To be a part of. That, I think that's a good. That I like it. Actually, really happy with that. That is a good way for our past tense good place for our past tense to derive from. So let's see. To experience, to undergo, to be a part of. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And of course, our non-past, it makes sense for it to just be unmarked. I mean, I'm not going to put anything special into our present future tense. It would get used way too often to warrant marking. So, okay, there's a good idea there. Let's go ahead and just... So other things we need. So that's our non-past and our non-past and our past. I like that a lot. Aspect. What aspects do I want to do? I mean, let's start with the simple. We have perfective and perfective. Oh, do I want to do perfect? I'd have to remember exactly what perfect is. It's you gotta love the naming of things. We have both perfect and perfective. Okay. Wikipedia for perfective aspect. A simple whole, a unit without interior composition. Okay. And on this there's a perfective versus perfect. Okay. A perfect tense is a grammatical form used to describe a past event with present relevance. For example, I have put it on the table implies both that I put the object on the table and that it's still there. I have been to France conveys that this is a part of my experience as of now. I have lost my wallet implies that this loss is troublesome at the present moment. Okay. A perfect tense does not necessarily have to be perfective in aspect. For example, I have been waiting here for an hour, and I have been going to that doctor all my life are perfect, but also imperfective in aspect. Okay. So it sounds like perfect could... Okay, so here's an idea. If I do a perfective, imperfective, perfect, let's do the perfect as a additional word, so that way it can interact with all of these options here. Let's start with that. So, do I want the perfective or the imperfective marked? That is question number one. So how do my people see the present tense? Let's start with that. Do they see it as a ongoing thing, or do they see it as this is the present tense and it is separate from this moment is separate from another moment, or it's separate from the past or future? I think I want to do the present is ongoing, which would mean that the imperfective would be the unmarked form. Okay. I mean, if one of these is going to be unmarked, it's going to be the imperfective. Let's put it that way. That's what I mean by this. Perfective. So this is where we have something that means it's kind of a complete unit. For instance, like I went versus I was going. Okay. So we could almost say once for the perfective of that's where what we're deriving from. It's like meaning once. It's a possibility. So essentially, specifically, and specifically, this was like it is a one and done thing, quite literally. There we are. Sorry. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, I kind of like that idea. Something meaning like once, or or something along that lines. I don't know. I've kind of latched onto that once thing, and I really like it. It kind of gives us then the option later to also use twice or thrice to give more options too. So there's some, like a twice to say it happened 2 times specifically, which I think kind of has some cool merits. It's kind of a cool idea. So there's no reason it wouldn't go ahead and start up now. So I forget what the word is for when it happens just twice. There is a word for it. I've considered using it before. It is actually a type of verb I tend to use because I think it's just a cool idea of something done specifically 2 times, like I knocked twice. Something simple as that. Yeah, we'll run with that idea. I like this. And yeah, we'll have that in early on marking. So our perfective once. So let's go with something like throw. I once threw, or I once throw. It is a one-and-done, or I am throwing. So this would mean, let me space these out more. Yeah, there we are. Because this would mean I once threw, or I once throw. I am throwing. Or I threw once. I throw once. I am throwing. I throw twice. And with our past, you get the words of I experienced. I underwent to throw once. I experienced throw once. I experienced throwing. These are very, very loose translations. I experienced throwing twice. I kind of like that. Oh, this kind of leaves an ambiguous description, ambiguous of whether it was twice back to back or twice period. Which I kind of like that actually. There's kind of a cool implication there of, and that can be kind of left up to context of, if you're saying like I knocked on a door, and it's a door that you often knock on, it would be implying, and you said I knocked twice, it would be implying that whenever you go to knock, you knock 2 times. Versus if it's a door that you don't go to often, it means that you've been to that door and you've knocked on it 2 times ever. There's some potential there. I like that idea. Yeah, that has some potential. Whereas if you look at specifically the non-past, it's going to be, at least if you're talking about in the present sense, it's going to specifically be twice in a row. Because it's going to be the right now moment. Whereas if you talk about in the future, you could also get that same thing of, it's a door I go up to often, and when I do, I go up and I knock twice. Versus, it's a door I go up to, I'm going to go to twice over my entire future and knock on it. I think there's some kind of a cool ambiguity there. I don't know how much that'll actually play out when I get into the specifics of actually creating it, but for right now, I do like that there's that potential. So yeah. And then we also had mentioned that looking at the perfect. So something giving relevance to the current time and place. Okay. So we have our basic, and this is going to be, I don't know where these will be marked yet, so I'm just going to add them all afterwards. I don't know whether or not these will be, or the order of these. So, I mean, this is kind of just rough here. This is just the verb. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Verb, that's what I wanted. Verb plus experience. Let's go ahead and then we'll just take out the ones on that one. Also, let's actually add the space there. This formatting is visually pleasing. Plus twice verb plus experience plus twice. There we are. Oh, that's not what I want. That's what I want. Okay, that I can work with. Okay. Oh, and that should be once through. I experienced throw once. Let's go with the kind of the English way of I threw once and I threw twice. And I was throwing. Yeah, that's kind of what they mean. I throw twice, I threw twice, I throw once, I threw once, I am throwing, I was throwing. And then our perfect, not perfective, perfect. And let's also just make this into a table. It's not going to like this table because there's lots of things. So. Oh, and then, okay, there's something else I need to do. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so format as table. Table has headers. Yeah, we'll do that. Ooh. Let's take out the filter buttons because those are way unnecessary. Oh. Oh boy. Gotta love the first column. Oh boy. This is not happening how I want it to. Let's undo that table. I forgot how weird tables are if you don't. Oh boy. Okay, let's just go with a simpler one that's consistent throughout. Let's take out the header. There we are. That's what I wanted. Let's put that back there. So boom. We have our initial, kind of our initial tense aspect to matrix. But we also need to add on what happens when we add on our perfect. So actually, we'll just mark this as initial. We'll mark this as our perfect. With our word for perfect being what is our word for perfect, or what are we going to evolve perfect from? Kind of currently. I currently lost my wallet. I currently threw the stone. I like the potential. I just don't know what to derive perfect from. So some options. Perfect could be derived from la da 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 da. Watch an amateur stumble around. Okay. once, twice, to experience something part of. Let's see. Perfect tense, or perfect aspect. Not perfect tense. Okay. Oh, okay. So looking at the Wikipedia page for perfect aspect, there are different types of perfect aspects. So you have resultative, continuative, interior, experiential, universal, perfect of present state, perfect of very recent past, evidential or inferential, and reportative. So resultative, a state in which the present is a result of an endpoint, a result or endpoint of an event in the past. I have lost my penknife. I still don't have it. Continuative, past situations continuing into the present. You know, the more I look at this, the less I want to deal with perfect tense right now. Maybe it's something that'll add in later. So, yeah. That said, though, we do need a way to mark future. So I think we are going to go future, and I think we're going to go the simple route with that one. We've done we're going to go with to go. If something's meaning to go, easy enough. So in this case, we'll need to look at what these will mean, how these will change. Now I know. I didn't intend for these to be this. I intended. Oops. Let's do this better. This is supposed to be non-past, or yeah. This is present perfective. And this may change away from being present perfective. We'll see. This is your past perfective. Your past imperfective. Your what is the this is gonna bug me to not remember what the to do it twice is, the aspect. So I go to the grammatical aspect page. Terms of various aspects. Yeah, I don't know if there's a term. I feel like there is a term for it. I'm just not placing it off the top of my head. So I will present yes tense. And then past whatever that is. Twice perfective? It's not iterative, is it? Iterative. I've read the same books again and again. It may be simulfactive / iterative. Yeah, I think iterative might be the best way to call it right now. But it's specifically for twice. And not for like actually, that's one thing I should point out. It's not for I throw twice. It's not I threw 2 rocks. It's I throw rocks twice. So it's a slight difference. Because you could be talking about the same. You could easily be talking about the same rocks or 2 different rocks. That's kind of unambiguous from the verb alone. Okay, so let's look at our future and what that'll get marked as. So we have our non-past, or let's start with our imperfective non-past. That's going to be our simple future tense. I will throw. Our perfective. Okay, we'll just. Our perfective would become. No, I will be throwing. Specifically. Not I will throw, I will be throwing. Because this is I will throw. I will throw twice. I will have thrown, or I will have been throwing. Yes. That is the English equivalent. Let's be honest about that. I will have thrown twice. I will have thrown once. Future imperfective. Future perfective. Future iterative. Okay, and these past ones. So the question is, do these become modes or do these become relative tenses? So, kind of like, these would be, oh, okay. So if I recall correctly, pluperfect is past and past. Future in the past is, as it says, future and future, and then, I forget the name of when it's the past and the future. We'll just call it that for now. Past and future. These would be, I will have thrown once. I will have been throwing. And those, of course, the English things I'm working with too. So I mean, there's that. So yeah. So our imperfective future in the past. Okay. Actually, I think I want to come back up here, and I think I want to rework this present perfective because it's not going to stay. You have the present, or you have the present imperfective. I think that's going to become your just generic present tense. I am doing this right now. I don't think I'm going to make a distinction between perfective and imperfective in the present tense, or in the non-past, as it were. So in that case, what would the non-past then be? Or what would the non-past perfective then become? And does the iterative change because of that as well? That is another question. And so what are some of our options? Oh boy. all these options. Boom. It could become I guess nomic might be the right one. Of just, it's a general truth of, well, I throw once. That almost makes more sense for the past perfective, but I don't want to get rid of that. I definitely don't want to, if I don't have to touch it, I don't want to touch the past perfective. There's some ideas here. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I think that this might just stick around as being a present perfective. Well, I feel like it might pick up another meaning as well. It could be like something that, like a finished, what is it? Terminative, cessative of, yeah. Like, I finished doing this. I finished throwing. I threw once. It's done. That is a possibility. I'll do terminative. That's a possibility. I threw once. It's done, or that it's a kind of an ending point. So rather than I threw once, I finished throwing. I throw once. I don't know. I think because of the once, the whole thing is gonna stay as specifically as perfective. That's how I'm imagining it right now. So I'm having trouble seeing it as becoming anything else. Yeah, and that may just be that you have a specific. Yeah. I think it's just gonna be specifically. It's gonna stay perfective even in the present. Because, or even in the non-past, because it is specifically coding for debita. Yeah, because it's specifically saying it is a once thing. It is one and done. It is very distinctly different from I am throwing. It may not be used. It may not be used much in the present. That may be just more. It just may not be used much at all, or maybe used for emphasis, which is also true. You could say, "I'm throwing." Actually, I do like the idea of it being a very specific emphasis. What are you doing? Oh, I'm throwing the rocks, or I'm throwing rocks. What are you doing? I throw once rocks. There's an idea there of it being a very specific, very intentional. Oh, what if it did mark some intentionality on it? That may be mode. To be honest, I don't remember what has intentionality. But I do like that idea of it being of it being used for emphasis more than anything else. I'll play around with that. I'm going to. Well, that's a bit bright. I'll keep that in mind. I'm going to write a note for that. Our non-past perfective possibly used for emphasis, or there was another word I used, and I cannot remember off the top of my head, of course. It'll come to me in a moment. Used for emphasis or differentiation. Yeah. It may just, yeah, that, I kind of like that idea. I once threw. Yeah, I kind of, yeah, there's some cool ideas there. I like this. Okay, so going back to our past ideas. Actually, here's an idea. So looking at the time, we've hit about the hour mark in our in what we're doing today. I think this is probably actually a good point to wrap up. I will think more on this. I will think more on that non-past perspective. I will think on our future past stuff, and whether it's going to be more modal or more aspectual or tense relationships or what that's going to be, what that's going to look like. I'll think on that off the stream. Until then, I will see you all next Thursday. And at this point, I believe I will probably be doing at 5 o'clock again. Although you may see me at 11 o'clock as well. We'll see. But I think at this point you can plan on me being back here on Thursday at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you all for joining. Hope you enjoyed your hot chocolate as we continue to work on our Venus Medusa language and culture. Well, we didn't talk too much about the culture today, but maybe that's something that we'll look into next week as we continue going on. So, thank you everyone for joining me today, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. And yes, thank you all.